Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. This is Adobe Live, and I am your host, Chris Blackstock. It is 9:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we are here with the lovely, awesome, talented Voodoo Val. Hi, Voodoo.
What's up? What's going on, man? It's good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you as well. Glad you're finally here, finally with us. Obviously, I know you had an interesting day yesterday, so
Yeah.
glad you're here today.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, shout out to the chat today. Hey, everybody. We got RB, Melissa Vigliata, General Kenobi, Becca Smith. Looks like Wade and Sam are also in the chat there. Hey, everybody. How's it going? Shout out wherever you're coming from. Please let us know where you're watching this from. Um, we're going to, oh, sorry.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine.
Um, Yeah, we're gonna remember to start your day off with our curated selection of past Photoshop Daily Creative Challenges every day this week at 9 a.m. Pacific. Tune in, challenge yourself. There's a new prompt each day. So let's get started. Let's say hi to Voodoo Val. Let's find out what we're doing today on our drawing and painting session. Yeah, introduce yourself. Obviously, a lot of people probably already know who you are. You're such a wonderful guest and host on here. But yeah, let
Oh.
us know what's going on today.
Yeah, so hi everybody. I see a lot of familiar faces in the chat, but my name is Voodoo Val, Val for short, if you want to just keep it simple. I'm going to be doing a drawing and painting stream today. One of my specialties that I just love, 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 like my favorite thing to paint of all time is like dark fantasy portraits. So I've got a portrait we're going to be working on for you guys here today, and I've got a sketch kind of created because unfortunately I wasn't able to be here for day one. So I kind of put together a sketch, but I'm going to go through the steps that I took to get here. And what I really like to focus on today is like sketching advice, ways that you folks can kind of streamline your workflow, answering and giving advice for a lot of the illustration questions that I see in the chat so often, and just all around creative advice and stuff. So I hope that you guys are excited. I'm excited. I'm an open book. Pick my brain. Honestly, ask me anything except questions about the Star Wars stuff I don't like. You guys know what to stay away from. But I'm pumped. So yeah, I figure I'll just kind of dive in here
Yeah,
and get
let's do
everything
it.
going. So I do have a sketch kind of prepared here. I've got like a base scribble in the back that kind of shows just a grayscale shape to kind of fill in
Uh-huh.
my sketch. And I've got like a scribbly sketch underneath here, and then I have one that's a little more solid. And the style I'm going to go for today is like not really like a realistic painting, more like a semi-real. So it's going to be like very humanoid, very I guess sort of realistic, but it's going to be a little bit exaggerated, I suppose. So it won't look like a photo. It'll just be, semi-realism illustration.
Got a little bit
Um,
of style to it.
yeah, a little bit of movement here. And so the first thing that I would like to do is kind of go over some of the questions that I see a lot of people ask in the chat when they are learning to illustrate, getting back into the groove of illustration, or trying to improve their illustration. And those questions are things like, how do you know when a sketch is finished and it's time to move on to the next step? How do you sketch out things in general? I see a lot of people kind of having rigid sketches that don't really flow a lot, and they feel a little discouraged when their sketches don't, start out or continue on the way that they're looking for. And then also kind of how to pick a composition for a portrait. So the first thing I guess I'll touch on is the like sketching process. And I'm actually going to kind of group my layers here and hide this, or we'll peek at it real quick just so I can do an example. So you'll notice this is not, it's not like a perfect sketch. It's not perfect line art. I typically don't do perfect line art unless I'm doing a painting where the likeness needs to be spot on. Like if I'm painting a person and it needs to look like that person, I'll do a pretty solid line art. But for this, I'm just kind of making this up as I go, so it can be a little bit loose. But you'll notice I have like these large kind of sweeping flowy lines here, especially in the hair and all that good stuff. And one of the things that I see in people's sketches who are looking to kind of get a smoother vibe or an easier sketch is I see a lot of this, and this is what I think a lot of people call hairy lines, where they get a lot of, like, they're sketching a circle and they get a lot of this going on, and they're trying to make everything, really look the way that they want it to look, but they're getting a lot of this rigidness and all that stuff. And I would say, if you want your sketches to be very flowy, and kind of get away from that to make a more solid sketches, I say zoom out. Use a brush that, I typically like to use charcoal brushes, texture brushes. You can use whatever you like. But if you zoom out, maybe even turn on a tiny bit of smoothing, just a teeny tiny bit of smoothing, and kind of just don't be afraid to put a big line down. When you just kind of draw a circle, and that's actually a pretty darn good circle.
Yeah, not bad.
I'm gonna pat myself on the back. I was about to say your circles aren't going to be perfect, and then I have this lovely little circle baby here. But don't be afraid to put lines down. Sometimes what I do is, before I start a sketch, is I'll do some of this, like all over my canvas. I will you probably saw me doing it before the show began, like kind of behind my sketch on my canvas, Chris, is I'll just kind of do this, get my hand into the groove, and kind of do some lines like this.
Gotta warm up a little bit, get the muscles loose, get the mind working, just kind of not having that direct focus at first. It helps loosen you up a little bit.
For sure. And I think, at least in the beginning of my kind of illustration adventure, my illustration journey, I was so terrified. I just, I had the hairy lines because I was like, I want it to be perfect. So I'm just going to put a little bit and a little bit and a little bit and try to follow it around. But a lot of that was fear of not getting it right. But we have Control Z. You don't have to get it right. You could free transform something and warp it around. So don't fear putting something down on the canvas. Go for that long stroke. Get into the habit of kind of zooming out, keeping your eye on the ball of your sketch, so to speak, and just kind of dive into it and see if you can, if that works for you. The next thing is, after you maybe do a little bit of line warm up, is deciding how to go about the composition of your piece. So I've got kind of almost a square canvas here, and I just want to do a portrait, but I don't want to do your standard, if I can grab a red color here. I didn't want to do your standard head, neck, and then the shoulders coming down and kind of going off the canvas. I wanted to do something a little more interesting, a little more, unique. And I find that one of the coolest ways to do this is to formulate your portrait in the shape of an anchor. And so you'll notice it is a very pleasing shape to the eye, no matter who you are, I think, just having this shape. And it works in a lot of different ways. So your anchor composition could look totally different from my anchor composition. You can kind of complete the shape with a lot of hair. So this is obviously a bust of the character, but really the only part that you can see of her body really is right here. And I've got her hair kind of flowing around just to make it more interesting. Another thing you could do is, if you're doing a portrait, it's not going to have a background or something. Once you kind of figure out what character you want to illustrate, you can do some interesting things. This is kind of a World of Warcraft night elf type character. So maybe I, want to add in some flowers here and there, just to kind of complete this little area, just tiny little design elements where, you're not painting an environment in the background. You're just getting some little things going here and there, and just kind of clean up that shape. And it would work no matter, my character's got long hair, and I can easily kind of swirl that around to create this shape. But if your character had short hair You know, you could bring in maybe part of the outfit that the person is wearing is going to complete that shape. Maybe there's a V-neck collar, or maybe they have some sort of fantasy weapon or something, or maybe there's, you know, whatever it is that you think your character would have in their environment, kind of place things around. And when you arrange it that way, I feel like it's very pleasing to look at, kind of a nice composition. So I'm going to go with that. You know, and I'd like to kind of go through how I got to this point here before we dive into like the painting, because I'm going to paint her up nice and pretty. But typically what I do is I start out with like a draft sketch, and my sketches, y'all, they are not lovely. They are not for public consumption. They're not, you know, I'm a little embarrassed of them, to be honest.
Seen, though.
Yes,
the ugly
it does. There's definitely an ugly phase of my illustration, and I tell people, like, it's my ugly phase ends when it ends. It's ugly till it's not, you know, and you can kind of see your eyes are like at different levels and whatever. But I typically, what I do is I layer my sketches. I don't stick to one sketch and like force myself to use that first one. I do, you know, my head, I'll usually, you know, drop down a center line for my face and just make like your standard egg. And I usually just go like this. I just kind of sketch around and try not to be terrified of, you know, doing a bad job.
I think it's one big advantage with the digital is, like you said, it's like you can kind of create those onion skins, those transparent layers. I do the same way with, especially with sketching stuff that's more detailed, where you start out and you're doing general shapes. You're just kind of blocking stuff in, and then you're going to go to another sketch, start to refine. And then if, like you said, if you're doing a line drawing or you really need crisp lines, then you're going to do it again, and you're going to go back with the final line on top of that. So that's good advice. It's like, remember, it's like just this initial sketch doesn't have to be the final thing. You could use it as guidelines, as just the skeleton of what your drawing's going to be. So, and it's good. It's good to just think of it as kind of like it's not a throwaway, but its importance is really just for structure and kind of building your composition. So I think that's great advice, Voodoo Val.
And I think, like, you know, I was kind of sketching over long flowing lines. Try to are we good? Oh, we're back. Okay.
Little hiccup.
Long flowing lines, you know, just trying to kind of keep it loose, and
whoops,
everything. It doesn't always go back. Okay,
we're good. Yep.
Sorry about that. I can hear you the whole time, but I guess maybe you can't hear me.
Yeah, it's cutting in and out a little bit. That's okay.
Oh, darn. Okay. But I just do a lot of long flowy lines, and just kind of try to keep everything, just put stuff down where I think it's supposed to go. And if I put it in the wrong place, then at least I know where it doesn't go, and then I move it, you know, and just try not to be super precious with it, because it's a sketch. And what I do is I just turn the opacity down, make a new layer, and then start to really round it out more, and just build upon it until it starts to look more like what I'm going for, basically. And once I do that, which is kind of what I've already done here, is I have, you know, this draft thing where I did that and I put a more solid sketch over top. I spent a little more time on it. Then I come to the point where I can start painting it, which is what we're gonna dive into a little more heavily right now. So the first thing that I did was I just took a large brush, and I made a new layer under my sketch, and I just filled in a big shape, in the shape of what I'm working on. And the next thing I do is I start placing values. All of my paintings typically start out in black and white. And it's because I really struggle just using color. and starting in color. It's something that's difficult for me, and I do practice it every once in a while, but this is, how I'm most comfortable. So I choose like a middling tone. So if I sample this color, you can see it's kind of in the center of my grayscale spectrum over here. And what I do is I grab a dark value and I start placing all of my shadows around where I feel they need to go. And then I do the same thing with highlights. But we are going to talk a little bit about not overusing values, if that makes sense. Because I see a lot of people, and I'm guilty of this too, is like placing down shadow, placing down highlights, and then putting those highlights everywhere in the painting instead of using it to highlight the subject. Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to flip my canvas, and I have a hotkey.
Becca Smith has a quick question for you. She's just wondering if you use opacity on your brush when you do these initial sketches.
I use pressure sensitivity. Okay. And so if I don't want it to be like a hard press, if I don't want it to be like a hard solid line, I just don't press very hard, and I turn the opacity of the layer down when I want it to be a little softer. I very seldomly, unless I'm blending my paint, unless I'm blending to do skin or whatever, I very seldomly change the opacity of my actual brush. And you'll notice that it stays at like 100% for most of this time. And using texture brushes with like, interesting blend settings and stuff also lends itself to that, because when I'm not pressing so hard, it kind of gives me a nice texture in between there, Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start placing down some values. And the initial like hot spots that I kind of hit at first is I'm looking at this and I'm thinking I want, my lighting to come down here from, I guess, I put my hand up because like I'm looking down at it. So it's coming down here, but I realize it doesn't look like that to you on the
camera. I think it's coming from the upper left corner.
Yeah.
As I'm pointing to the right,
So we're gonna have like spots of light, around in these areas, but those areas are going to eventually cast a shadow somewhere. So I'm going to come in here and lightly, I'm just going to start putting, some darkness on the side of the nose here, around the side of the cheek. I've got this sketch line here to remind me that I wanted her cheeks to kind of bump in there, which leads me to another point, is like I leave notes for myself in my sketch. Like I know that I want to give her like the night elf face tattoos, so I just have like a little sketch there. I know that I want her face to be like very pronounced, so I just throw that little line in there, so when I come in and do my values, I remember stuff like that. Do you leave notes for yourself in your work, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, as very similar, where as I'm sketching, certain lines or details, but I also do a lot of that with if it's a complex lighting scheme, sometimes I'll go in and block it out first. Almost in shapes initially, just so it's very similar to what you're doing. So it's I kind of know where everything is before I start to dig in. Yeah. But it just all depends, I think depends on how you're rendering, what kind of lighting you're doing, how finished you want your piece to be. But I like this process of just kind of having some minor notes, like you say, kind of going in with not a soft shadow, but you're not going too dark at first. You're just you're starting to block in these shadows. Now, is the brush, because I see the pressure sensitivity icon isn't pressed in. Is it built into your brush settings on this one, or is it the brush itself?
This is a custom brush I made.
Okay.
And so I just have like a noise texture on a regular palette knife kind of brush.
Okay, cool.
And I haven't looked at the shapes of this or the settings of this in a really long time. So maybe it's not pressure sensitivity specifically. But let me.
Well, it almost looks like it has a taper on the opacity of the brush itself.
Yeah. And it's very like it just allows me to not like I can build on it if I want to build on it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't have to worry about, because when it comes to using brushes and altering the settings and stuff, I tend to sometimes if the brush is too transparent, then it doesn't give me that like solid sweep that I want.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's too opaque, I find that I'm so flourishy and flexible with how I want to be illustrating that I tend to muddy my own illustrations if it doesn't have a little bit of transparency on it. So
yeah, I like this brush because it kind of, like you said, it's sometimes when you're working with opacity settings, it can kind of leave lines of when it when it's overlapping, it's not really blending very well, and so you almost have to overwork it. This way your opacity is all the way up, and so it's actually blending into itself, but still allowing for that tapering and opacity as you're brushing it. And it's also, I think, important that you're using a palette knife type brush, something that doesn't taper in size. Especially in the beginnings, I think it's important for artists to try to not be as tight. And so when you don't have those tapered edges, you really are just doing these soft block ins. But you can still get a hard edge if you want, because you have a crisp edge if you need it, but it kind of prevents you from doing too many details at first. And so it's a nice brush.
That is kind of leads me into one of my next points I really wanted to make, and I'm glad that you brought that up. And that is another thing that I see artists do in their work when they get into painting is like, I have these big, a lot of people say blocking out shapes, right? Like blocking things in and everything. But I see a lot of people do this right here. And that is if they're, painting. Let me just grab my ellipse tool. And I'm going to paint bucket in like a mid-tone. And deselect. And I'm just going to make a clipping mask onto that real quick so I can paint in here. I see a lot of people, they're like, well, I want to make this look like a 3D sphere. And what they do is they have this tiny brush and they start to like come in and add like this, and they're starting to put in, and then they're like, well, now that I've done this, I need to like start blending it together. So then they start blending it together, and it starts to not really, there's no smoothing, then you start to expand, and you're trying to do it like this, and you've got this teeny tiny little brush, and you're making big waves with a tiny brush. And so and they're doing this and they're doing this, and then they or they're illustrating skin, they're trying to make something smooth, but your brush is so small and you're zoomed in doing these tiny little strokes, you're not going to get that smooth texture and that smooth blend that you want, because your brush is so small. That tiny brush comes in, I think, twice in a process, and that is like when you're doing your sketch, smaller brush, unless you I mean, some people block in with a larger brush, but and then at the end, once you have down what you need to have down, you don't want to build the groundwork of an entire piece with a tiny brush, because now I can, like, if I wanted to, I can just come in with a much larger brush and I can start to kind of do this and make it a lot smoother. Now mine is obviously starts out as a palette knife, and I probably wouldn't use this specific brush for this part,
Right.
but if you're using a larger brush, you can kind of block in what you need to block in, and then you can take your tiny brush and you can do like your highlights or whatever it is you want to do. So doing it like starting out with a large brush and blocking shapes in is much better. If you're trying to render skin or render a character and you have this tiny brush, you're going to take like 4 times as long to do it, first of all.
Yeah.
You're going to be rendering for days. And you're also going to, for me personally, I was frustrated all the time. I was like constantly frustrated because I was like, I want the skin to be smooth. I want everything to be, this certain way. Why isn't it happening? Brush too small.
Yeah.
Brush too small. Brush much too small. And everybody's different. There's a variation, obviously, because my process works for me and it can work for a lot of people, but some people communicate with art differently. And, there's definitely going to be variations of this that work for you and don't. So I would say listen to yourself as you kind of go about your creative business, but test these out. If you're running into these issues, test those things out and see if it helps. I'm going to start adding some highlights a little bit, just like I wouldn't say highlights because I'm not going to come in here into like white, but I just would like to add some lighter portions, maybe not even that light, just to kind of give it a little bit of definition. But I also want to talk about painting hair because I struggle painting hair, even though I paint a lot of hair. And the best way that I have found as you go through it, maybe we'll start adding like highlights to the hair specifically first. When you don't know how to paint something or draw something, draw it like that's not what you're drawing. And I realize that sounds weird, but this is not hair. While I'm blocking these out, these are thick strips of ribbon. You know what I mean? Like, no, don't see it as like strands of hair. I'm seeing this as like, flat plane that is, going this way and going this way and then pointing out there. This is a strip here, like kind of trying to visualize this. This is a strip and it comes up and this is a whole side of it. And this is a whole other side of it underneath, that's different. So this is going to be lighter and this is the underneath part. And so this is going to be darker. Then if I can visualize it that way, then this is its own piece and it flips. And then here it starts to turn around again, and so then this is its own piece that goes this way. And then here comes the other end of it where it goes this way and that. You start to visualize it as something different, then all of a sudden you're painting the thing you meant to paint. I get stuck in my head about, I want to paint perfect hair. And then I try to paint hair and I'm like, it's a little muddy. It's not doing the directional stuff I want it to do. Why is this? And it's because I'm not, for me, visualizing it differently as something other than the detailed final state of what it's supposed to be helps. So that sort of thing, seeing these as individual little pieces, little ribbons, yes. Stuff like that.
Shape language, really understanding structure and understanding that everything has structure, right?
Yeah.
And the more you simplify it, it's going to be easier to beautify it really in the end. It's like you really break it down. Because then, now that you've built these great ribbon strands, when you want to pull out a few of those strands of hair or kind of have these little design choices, they're really going to stand out. They're going to be meaningful. But if you try to, like you said, if you try to do that in the design right away, it can be really hard because then all of a sudden you've got so much going on and people are missing the rhythm and the flow of the original sketch or drawing. So it's a great. I like the ribbon analogy. It's a really good one.
Hairs and ribbons is like it was like the easiest thing for me to get the gist of once I decided to see it that way. Because up until then I was just like, gosh, man, my hair game is not strong. It's not
hard.
It's difficult. And I'm gonna try, because I know that we are limited on time and we have a day 2 of 1 basically.
Yes.
So I'm probably not going to be extra precious with the hair, and I think that I will probably give it a rest for now until because I think if I'm going to focus on anything today, I'd really like to focus on more of the face and stuff. But I just wanted to make sure I touched on that, because I don't know how much time I will have later on to kind of come in and start blocking this in. But you can see,
we're about 30 minutes in, so just
okay.
Just so you know, yeah.
But you can see like just those small subtle changes have already started to like make it, you know, you can start to see light hitting different levels of this hair a little bit. And like I said, in the absence of time today, it's not looking perfect, but that's, you know, just some tips. And I hope that if, you know, if that's something that you've been struggling with, you can kind of test that out and see if it works better for you to do it that way. Now I do want to add, just making new layers here. I'm not being good about naming my layers. I'll come back eventually and name them.
Look, we don't have time for that.
We don't have time for any of that.
Go.
Yeah. But I'm
gonna name the layers. Do it yourself. We don't have time.
Dude, I tell people all the time, I name my layers when I know somebody's gonna need the file later. I know.
I do it afterwards.
Sometimes I name my layers on Adobe Live, but my natural state is like making layers, and then once it starts to get out of hand, I go back and clean it up, and then it gets out of hand again.
Once you spend 5 minutes trying to find your layer, like, okay,
yeah,
time to group, time to label these things.
So I'm just, you know, kind of touching some lighter values here and there. I might even have used like a much darker value than I probably should have to like block in some of these original shapes. But I mean, you know, I don't typically have, like, I don't have a set value. I've seen people that have like, here are my values, and they use them. I kind of just go with the flow and just select like a light gray, mid gray, and darker gray. I don't worry about it too much. And if I find like, okay, it's getting a little muddy or whatnot, then I'll kind of come in with a big brush and a new value, and I'll sort it out. What I want to do real quick is I want to put a lighter value here just to separate the eyes from the rest of this real quick. Another thing, I think one of the hardest things that I have done is like learn how to be confident about my character when I'm painting eyes. I do the irises and the pupils and everything of a character. I do that last, because when I'm in sketch mode and I start dropping in the iris and the pupils, if they're not perfectly spot on when I first do it, my character looks super derpy to me and I can't take it seriously. So you'll notice all of my characters are going to have like creepy empty eyes until like the last minute. That's how it's gonna go.
Where's my forest elf cross-eyed? Yes,
exactly. And it's just I can't take my own art seriously if
can't shoot arrows with those kinds of eyes.
You can't.
Miss every time.
Yeah, we are supposed to be like magical huntresses here, and this is not working out.
Well, the good thing with fantasy is that the glowing pupilless eyes work very well until you want to change it.
One of my favorite things as far as like being able to like get away with cool stuff with fantasy art is what we're actually going to do today is the whites of the eyes are going to be gray. The pupil or the irises are going to be like a sort of lighter gray, and the pupils in the center are going to be stark white, which I think looks cool. It gives it like an inner glow and makes it look really cool. I think what I would also like to do at some point here is, you know, I'm working with a white canvas, and I kind of feel like if I can take my piece and give it like a not a background but like a darker value in the back there, it can also like make what I'm doing pop here. So what I'm gonna do is this is pretty solid. I don't think you can see through that sketchy sketch. Is that? Yeah, we're fine. We're gonna drop some black in here, and I also I keep the default. I've just right clicked off the canvas here. I keep my default black in the back here. I do a lot of dark art though, so if I change my canvas to have like a black background. I just think it looks super cool. It makes it look like I have way more space than I do. I'm also just gonna kind of make this sharp around the edges here. And this is one of the brushes that I like to use that definitely has like a very hard, solid edge to it. This is just like a chunky brush, you know, and I like to just, yeah, very chunky. And I'm just gonna kind of shape this a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect. But...
Yeah, I think once night mode settings were introduced way back when, I was like, oh, everything's on night mode.
All of my stuff already looks cool. So...
yeah. I don't want to see any white, all black.
Yep. I just need it to look.
I know. My wife's always looking at my phone. She's like, why is everything black? Like, why? How do you read it? I'm like, I can't read it the other way. It hurts my eyes. I don't know. I just live in darkness every day.
Buffer on my end. I apologize if that's, if I'm.
Yep. Just cutting out a little bit. But,
just a moment ago.
Yeah, that's okay.
All right.
As long as you come back.
Yeah, I think I'm always coming back. I'm not sure what the problem is because my internet is strong. But
never know.
All right. So now I'm adding a darker value here. I would like I kind of used a lot of I kind of use a lot of tones that are very close in value. And once I have like, because they're kind of all variations of like gray colors, not a lot of harsh blacks in the center aside from where my sketch lines are. So now that I have, you know, some basic values, then I can come in with like a harder black and add a kind of a hard shadow where I want there to be drama. Drama.
Yes.
So like under the chin here, I want there to be like kind of a hard cut off there. And I might soften this eventually, but this, you know, kind of works for me. So I'll probably add, I'm just going to throw some dark color there. I probably will want some dark coming in here and under here, flowing over that way. We'll do some under there. Just a little more dramatic, just kind of start making things sharp because it's very sketchy. Personally, I leave my sketch in the painting. Some people turn their sketch layer off eventually. I do not. Do you leave a sketch layer?
Not usually.
Okay.
I usually, once I get, but I also do a lot of my work is very refined, and also I'll do really tight line work. So it doesn't usually benefit me to have a sketch sitting underneath that I'm not using. But it depends, you know, like if I feel like it had some good stuff that I don't want to completely get rid of, I'll usually have it really light. But yeah, usually I usually have like one sketch layer that I like to work off of. Okay.
Gotcha. See, I'm just like placing in some separation lines here. And then what I'm going to do is I've been sketching underneath my sketch this whole time. Then I'm just going to move above it and I'm going to start sketching over the top of it and just make it all part of the piece.
Awesome.
So it's all connected.
Not connected.
Yeah. It's all just kind of in the stew pot together is yes. You know, basically.
Well, it is nice kind of being able to go over the top, because sometimes your like where your sketches line, you're like, okay, I want to start building on top of that. It feels more like sculpting and painting after that is when you can kind of just start going over it and popping things out.
And sometimes what I can do is like, I have that really sketchy sketch layer. I can kind of turn that off. And then I have this, you know, I guess you can kind of see, like, that's another way that I can kind of check what I'm doing here. Like, do I know what I'm doing? You know, if you turn it off, then you can kind of see, I feel like that still, aside from the nose being a little vague, I feel like this still reads without anything over top of it. But I do like to have the sketch. Sometimes I will, if it's a little harsh, because I did use some dark,
some very dark lines
off, and then it's all like this. And then now I am painting over the top. You know, I feel like I've got everything lined up, and I'm painting over the top of everything here. And I can kind of like go over some of my.
Yeah, Val's brush there.
On Adobe Live, and everyone was actually, I believe Paco was there with me. Maybe Paco was there. Paco might have been there with me. But I was doing, was making custom brushes, and I was naming them.
Oh no, you keep cutting out.
They could be titles. They can be, they could be titled brushes or sentences. It doesn't have to be 2 words.
Yes.
So I have this like charcoaly brush. Maybe if I turn it on red, you can see the texture of this.
Yeah, very cool.
I really love charcoal brushes. It's a big thing for me. So I like to have,
especially with rendering.
Yeah.
I mean, if I think that's the thing that's kind of it's tough with, if anybody, you know, if they're learning just digital, and I think why it's so important to have, you know, something like Adobe Live or, you know, just instructional videos, is that a lot of these techniques you would learn traditionally because you'd be on newsprint and you'd be with charcoal, and you would start to understand how beautiful charcoal is and how well you can render with it. And it's creating all of these gradients for you. It's creating these soft textures, these hard lines. You can get any kind of stroke you want. And so when you go straight to digital, or you try to learn digitally, and if you don't have the proper brushes or you know, the proper training, it can be really hard to recognize some of those things, or know why those techniques exist. So yeah, it's cool. I mean, charcoal is definitely one of those things where charcoal brushes, obviously in Photoshop, are great, but I always suggest, like, if you can get in front of a piece of paper, you know, and get some real tools, it's going to help your digital work so much, because you're going to have a much better understanding of flow, rhythm, movement, because some of that stuff is really hard to get on a tablet, and it's so much easier to just kind of do on a piece of paper. So I always try to push people to be like, if you love doing this and you love doing it digitally, really try to make some effort to do it traditionally as well, because I think it goes a long way with how you approach your work.
And working traditionally every once in a while, it also you know, because traditional is not really my bread and butter anymore, and it hasn't been for
a lot of people, I think.
15 years. I haven't really like finished a traditional project, except for sculpture. I've done some sculpture, which is fun, but I feel like every once in a while, at least, like taking some time, a couple times a week, to do a traditional sketch in a notebook, or it doesn't have to be like a fancy finished product thing, but do it. It also helps me in digital work being more placing lines and strokes with intent.
Yes.
So, you know, it is amazing to have the ability to Control Z and change something up. But I find that once I've done a little bit of traditional work, I definitely get it right the first time more often. Not specifically getting it right the first time, but, you know, I place with purpose.
Yeah, definitely.
Z on paper. But also I want to point out, I did change the opacity of my brush to about 50%. I'm not sure if I'm going to use this brush to detail, by the way. I'm just kind of experimenting right now with it. I could, but I might play, because I don't know if this is like really blending like I want it to. I might go back to my noise brush. I think when it comes to finding digital, there's I feel like when you're using brushes, you kind of I feel like you should be able to do whatever it is that you're doing with any brush. And there's going to be brushes that maybe make your art a little more rigid or a little more smooth, or maybe feel awkward and not come out as well if you're using a brush you don't particularly like. But I feel like we don't need to rely on the kind of brushes you have in order to make good art, if that makes sense. And I say that only because I got stuck in a weird trap for a long time where I thought that if I didn't have certain brushes, then my art wasn't going to turn out good, you know?
Right.
But I spent some time learning how to paint the things that I wanted to paint. And I realized I could pretty much do it, with practice with any brush that I had. And then I kind of let go of like this worry that, my art wasn't going to be good if I didn't have the brush, or, worried about like, oh, what brushes is he using? If I want to be better, I have to have, that person's brushes. Don't be that hard on yourself. Don't.
No. And you're, like you said, it's the tools can come in handy, but it's the skill, the practice that's gonna set you apart. I mean, when I first started using Photoshop, it was like 16 years ago, I just used the hard round brush for years because I was able to get a lot out of it because I kind of learned how to make my own textures. To me, it felt just like painting. Yeah. I was just like, oh, I've got one brush. I'm going to do, I'm going to paint in my textures, do all these things. And then, as I progressed and got better, I was like, oh, okay, I can do the same thing, but I can do it 10 times faster if I just use this brush. Yeah. Or, okay, now I want to add certain types of textures or things that like I can get the same movement, I can get the same rhythm, and I can do it so much quicker. So I think you definitely want it to aid your process. You don't want it to hinder it. You don't want it to be something that you're constantly thinking about. Yep. Yeah. So
it shouldn't be a stressor.
Yeah, no, definitely not. And if it's something that you do think a lot about, make a little bit of time before you start working, and just maybe have a sketch pad type, just have a file open, have some new brushes you try, maybe that's the way you loosen up. Yeah. Because you don't want to be mid work or mid project and then be like, I'm just going to try hundreds of these brushes. Yeah.
Like I think that's the most stressful thing ever, is like you're in the middle of a project, you're trying to complete it, nothing feels like it's really going right, and then you find yourself hunting for a brush to finish your project with, and it's just stressful. And sometimes it can be fun because I do like exploring brushes, but I never want to find myself stranded where I feel like my art is not going to be good enough because of that tool. To me, that just kind of signifies like maybe I need more practice painting what I'm trying to paint. However, when it comes to choosing brushes, like choosing a digital brush, and I definitely have, like, I could draw whatever I want to draw with like this block brush, but I would hate this because it's just a very hard round brush. That would bum me out if I had to do that constantly. Right. But if you're looking for like a buttery brush that just feels good to you, my rule when it comes to like finding a brush that works for me is when I put stylus to tablet and use a brush and my brain makes me think I feel the texture in my hand, that I'm connecting to that brush, if that makes sense. Because like when I'm using my noise brushes and stuff, I'm using the same stylus I've been using for years. I'm using this just a tablet, it's smooth on smooth, plastic on plastic, but if I put my stylus to my tablet and I feel texture when I'm using a brush, I think that's buttery to me, where it just, my brain just kind of makes that connection and I'm like, that's a good feel. And those are typically the ones that I go with. So I'm breaking my own rule right now. I'm using a small brush.
Let's use a small brush.
Yeah, I'm trying not to break rules so much. Maybe I'm just doing what I said earlier and leaving notes for myself, because I want to remember to like clean up that cheek. So I'm just kind of putting a dark line and adding a little bit of lighter value to it, so I
feel like it's one of those things with like breaking rules, right? Or maybe breaking the process. I think as long as there's intention to it, or you know why you're doing it, it kind of changes it, right? You're like, well, I know why I got to do this right real quick. It's not what I'd normally do, but this is, you know, you kind of know why you're doing it.
Yeah, and also I feel like, I mean, as I feel like everybody's probably heard this said, is like you set out rules, and once you get comfortable with them, you can, I mean, you learn how to do what you're doing, and you can break the rules with style, kind of, you know. I think like I kind of have a handle on what I'm doing. I feel confident with my sketch. I don't want it to start getting muddy, so I'm going to kind of dial it back every so often so that I'm not kind of mucking up my own piece. But I think I have a good handle on what I'm doing. So if I want to break it up a little bit, I think I can. I think I've earned it if I want to just skip, you know. But I do want to make sure I at least kind of give the basics of how I do things to everybody who's watching, because other folks who are watching might not feel comfortable enough to do that in their own processes just yet. What I want to do is I want to return to a larger brush here. I want to block in the value for these cheeks. I want to create that like the eyelid there, so I need to maybe smaller just for right there. But I need to stop using my tiny brush and muddying it right there, and just put some light here and fade it up there. And then I would like to use a darker value and just swipe underneath to really start making that look like she has almost like bags under her eyes. But it's going to be like, in actuality, that's going to end up being like a reddish purple.
It's kind of like an eyeshadow, kind of like it's going to give it a little more, I don't know if demonic is the right word, but it's having those darker circles or darker patterns around the eyes. Going to make them pop more too.
Going to make it night elfy.
Yes.
You know, I mean, I don't play WoW anymore. I haven't played since I was much younger, and I don't know like the exact perfect night elf etiquette. So there's probably going to be some people who are a little angry because maybe this is not canon for how some of them look, but which I would understand, because you know I get mad about my own pop culture canon things sometimes. I feel it. But I do think that typically night elf type characters, at least, they eyeshadow on top and bottom, and that's just how it goes. Looks cool that way.
Yep. Yeah, there's something about the bottom eyelid rendering it that, like, I don't even, it's not like a, it's something you do like if like you're tired or you're sick, but there is also like it represents some kind of darkness.
Yeah.
You know.
Making it look creepy. Just a little creepy.
Yes,
I wonder what happens
a little bit of creep.
If we turn the sketch off now. I'm curious. I'm wondering. Not bad. Not bad. Not bad. There you go, Val. Go on with your bad self. Okay. Sometimes you have to be your own hype man too.
Very important.
It's I don't know about you, but and I'd love to hear from folks in the chat about this. But I get down on my own art sometimes, man. And sometimes if I let myself like run with that, if I just let my brain have its way and like kind of do that, I don't paint as much, and I feel like I kind of take a step back in my art journey, in my process. So sometimes like brush stroke and that brush stroke is like really cool or did something to the piece that I love, I just talk to myself alone in my office like, you know what? That's dope, Val. Look at you. Like, I've had my family like pass my office like, who are you talking to? Just me. Just me.
Yeah,
just me.
Talking to that voice in my head.
Yeah. Just,
No
you know
big
what?
deal.
You did a good job on that. That's great. That looks good and you should feel good. And then I noticed that I'm a lot less hard on myself when I actually do something that I hate in my
There's
art.
nothing worse than kind of breaking your motivation to draw and paint. But oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I do that all the time though. With kind of, I feel like I said, a lot of paintings or illustrations are really refined, and there's a lot of work that goes into it. And sometimes by the time I'm finished, I'm like, hate it,
Yeah.
because I put so much time, and I'm just like, I think there's a part of it too where you're like, I'm ready to do the next one. Like, I'm over
Yeah.
this. Like, I've
I'm
put so much time
done.
into this. Like, I just don't even want to look at it anymore.
My
Um,
thing is when I paint something, I've done a good job on this. I can't wait to put it on Instagram. And then a little voice in my head says, wait till tomorrow.
yeah.
Wait, wait till tomorrow. Look at it when you wake up. And I'm like,
Mhm.
nah, fam. This is it. This is the peak of my
Send.
career. Yeah. And I post it, and then I wake up, and I'm like, I wonder if anybody saw my drawing. And I open it up, like, what have I done? Oh, I didn't check. I didn't flip it to check and make sure
Yeah.
that it was like good. If I flipped it horizontally, this color is not. What have I done? And then I'm like, I don't know how to draw. My
Yeah.
career is over.
The
So
social media thing has obviously made everything a little more complex, especially when
yeah,
it comes to criticizing yourself or judging others. And it's healthy. It's healthy to be critical and to judge. Judge is not the wrong. I think being critical and having positive criticism and constructive advice,
yeah,
because you do need to learn how to kind of art direct your own art. Be
yeah,
able to, like, if you come back, it is good though to say, like, to come back to your drawing or your painting,
mm-hmm.
because you do get so deep into it, and you kind of start to miss things that like you didn't really pull out and take it all in. And so that next day with fresh eyes, you can be like, okay, that was bugging me yesterday, and it's still
Mm-hmm.
bugging me today, and I need to change it.
Yeah,
Or there's certain things that you don't see it right away. So it is important to be critical and to make sure you are pushing yourself. But you're right, like, not every drawing is going to be your favorite, and
mm-hmm.
sometimes maybe that's not what the drawing's for. Maybe that drawing was to get you to the next drawing, to the
Yeah,
next step.
yeah,
So you can't lose as long as you're doing. Like, it's just, you're putting in let's say you're having a bad week, a bad month,
mm-hmm.
you're putting in mileage. And honestly, if you talk to any professional, any person that's at the top of their game, it's all about mileage.
Mm-hmm.
You can have all the talent in the world, but if somebody's working harder than you, they're going to outwork you, and
Yeah,
they're going to get the jobs they're going to be doing because they're just working harder than you. And talent only takes you so far. It's about consistency, hard work, discipline,
mm-hmm.
and obviously your imagination.
Yeah,
Don't get caught up too much with um, this grand scheme of, like, how good am I?
mm-hmm.
It's all about those little baby steps, those daily goals. Is that, if that's what you're aiming for, those little mistakes that you have, those accidents, those are all going to pay off in the end. So it's true, those are all happy accidents, those are all good things. It just might not feel like it
Yeah.
at the
I mean,
time, but, like, don't lose sight.
I think one of the main things too is I like what you said about it doesn't matter how talented somebody is, that talent only gets you so far. And I think that maybe that's a really great thing to touch on just like separately. Is I used to get hung up on all the time. It's like, that person is so talented, I'm not that talented, I will never reach that person's level.
Mm-hmm.
um you can have, I mean, and it's like, obviously also, what is talent, but you could have less talent, if that's something that can be quantified, than somebody, and still end up surpassing their level. I feel like talent is the innate ability to do the art and how naturally it comes to you.
Hmm.
If that makes sense. Maybe somebody who has a lot of talent, using these new tools and everything, maybe it comes to them quickly. Maybe they are very comfortable right off the bat and they have great ideas and they're more at home expressing themselves with that creative medium than somebody else might be. But I think that if you're super uncomfortable with using a new tool or whatever, and somebody else just seems to have a more of a talent for it than you do, you can still get there if you put the work in and work at it. I think it's enough to have the desire in your heart to want to do the thing, and if you want to do the thing, if you want to, paint portraits or, draw dragons or whatever, doesn't matter if somebody has more talent than you, because wanting to do it is enough. Just put the work into it. You'll get to where you want to go, and I think also work healthy. I'll say that too. Don't grind so much that that you're like falling apart at the seams. I've been there. I've done that. I burned out one time. That's not great.
It's gonna happen, and it's weird. It's like a double-edged sword, because there's always, especially with art and being a creative, either being freelance or working for major corporations, it doesn't really matter. It's going to be a grind no matter what. There is importance to the grind. It's almost important to have a burnout moment or moments, because it kind of
teaches
shows
you your lesson.
Well, and also you start to find a balance, because you start to realize that you could push, be making all this great stuff. But when you do get to that burnout moment, you'll start to realize that it hugely affects what you create, how you create it, how quickly you create it, and your longevity as a professional. So there is an importance to it, and at some point you're going to have a project or you're going to have a crunch time, and you're going to have to just kind of push yourself. It's like almost like doing reps for working out, to build that muscle. It's like you're going to have to max out.
Yeah.
But you don't max out every day.
Yeah.
Right. And you take days off so that your muscles rebuild themselves, right? You need that time off. It's the same thing with your brain. That's why you go to sleep at night.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with drawing. It's like, it's important to put in the mileage and draw often, but drawing every single day or doing it's pretty unrealistic for most people. And sometimes it's okay to just stare at the ceiling, go to the beach, take a bike ride, whatever. But you're right. It's like, find that balance, make sure that you can come back with a fresh mind, fresh hands. It's so important, because it actually will increase how fast you grow.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've forced myself, I'm not done with this thing yet. I need to I need to do it. And for whatever reason, I tell myself in my brain, if you can't sit here and work on this till it's done, you're not professional enough, or you're not good enough. And then I take a step back, and on the days that I choose, instead of not working 8 hours straight on something, and instead working for 2 hours, taking a nice break, having a good meal, and coming back and working on it for another hour and a half, and it's done. That's way better, because when you exhaust yourself, it's the same thing, as you say, going to the gym, you don't work till your muscles fail. You reach that limit, and you come to a healthy point where you've pushed beyond, but you don't, you're not going to the hospital afterwards, hopefully. So don't push until you've broken that boundary so far that you're not making progress anymore in one sitting.
And that's, I think another analogy you could think of, if we're continuing with the weightlifting or working out, is that anytime you're doing that, you also have a spotter. You have somebody that's there making sure you're okay, making sure that you're doing it right. It's hard. I know it's hard for a lot of people, especially in the digital age, the online age, and it's something that I'm reminding myself. It's okay to ask for help. Reach out to other artists. Most other creatives out there, even the highest high professionals, they want to help, and they want to help you get better. and I think most people are pretty open to answering questions, and kind of helping others figure out their way. But it's good to have other artists with you on the journey and looking at your work, seeing if they can help or give advice, but also just kind of keep you in check, So try to find the community, try to find, friends or other artists that are doing this with you, because it does help a lot, and it does really improve the speed and the quality of your work as you go.
For sure. I have some comments on like finding a spotter, by the way. We are definitely keeping this Art Gains Art Gym like thing going for sure. But real quick,
Art Gym podcast? What?
Yeah, Art Gym podcast. Yeah. Get you some art gains. I did kind of change up what I'm doing here. So I am like painting over top of everything. What I'm going to end up having to do, and this is something that I do constantly when I work, is instead of erasing, I start sampling the color of my background and just painting stuff out. And what I do is I go and select, like I'll probably convert everything once I'm done to like a smart object, select all of this and mask it, and then like put in a new background. Just to, it's just something my hand just wants, I just want to grab that color there and start kind of, breaking the large shapes here with this. And I'm just going to do it because it comes naturally to me. That's what I like to do. Probably be a little bit cleaner.
It's almost like the process, since you have that really black background, it almost takes out the like erasing part or having to select another color to paint in.
Yeah.
You're kind of doing it all at once, having that black background. You're almost creating or tightening the silhouette as you go, which is, it's an interesting like I don't like working with a black background, but like I like watching this because it's totally different than how I would approach it, and it works. I can figure it out.
I didn't always work with a black background. But the blank canvas scares the heck out of me. I'm just like, what am I going to fill it with? But if it's black, and then I do dark fantasy, it just, it fits so well with it.
Yeah.
I'm usually using very, very dark colors. So it kind of lends itself a little bit to my vibe. I've seen a lot of people that use like a terracotta, or like a rust red, or they have like kind of a vibe for their art, and they start with a background that color because it kind of removes all of the like, what am I gonna do with this empty canvas, that vibe from it kind of takes it all out. I am like kind of redoing some of these sketchy shapes, just throwing in like a little swirl here, just wanted to kind of update on that so that I is still explaining what I'm doing here. But for as far as what you were saying about like have a spotter, I have a really good friend, and he is not like a creative in like the illustration sense. He's a businessman, very dear friend to me, and he spots me in a way that like my other creative like friends that I lean on don't do. And it's so valuable because he'll message me and be like, hey, what are you working on? And I'm like, oh, this and this. He's like, aren't you supposed to be working on this? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, stop that. What are you doing? And he's just like blunt with me, and he's like, oh, you think you're doing that? Handle your business. What are you doing? Like he just talks to me like, he's helping me run a company or something. And he'll message me. He'll be like, show me something good. Tell me something good. And I'll be like, I made this that I'm proud of. And he's like, excellent. Keep it up. Like check in on me. Show me something you're proud of, just out of the blue one day. And I'm like, I made this cool hairdo on a character. And he's like, perfect. It's perfect. Good for you. Keep going. And I just, you know, little moments like that. And so now I've tried to do that for a few of my friends. Like if I see them post something on Twitter, I'm like, this right here, you're doing an excellent job. Keep it up. And they might be having a heck of a time otherwise, you know, but at least for a moment, like just share like a little bit of joy and appreciation for something that
Yeah.
somebody did, you know, in little moments like that. I feel like it's changed my life.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, that's like you said, it's almost like just checking in, you know?
Yeah.
And it's
Just
true. That is the habit of like, oh, I've got all this. I know what I should be working on.
yeah. And he's
Makes
like,
me not want to work on it.
I think the worst is like if I send him a sketch and I'm like, look at this, and he's like, I didn't know that this was time to work on this project yet. And I'm like, oh, you're not wrong. You're not wrong, man. You're not wrong. But it's like, you know, that meme where it's like the guy walking with his girlfriend down the street and she's like, what are you doing? And he's looking back at somebody.
Yeah.
It's like me walking down the street with my current project, looking back at a new idea.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh.
but I could be doing, you know, this project.
Oh my
What am I
gosh.
gonna be? You know, maybe I should switch it up. That image is an Adobe stock image, by the way. Just so everybody knows, it's an Adobe. It's on Adobe stock.
That's Adobe is the origin of that.
Yeah. So I just, yeah, I
funny.
figured
That is a pretty funny stock image. Stock
it's
images
great.
are always pretty hilarious.
For
I
the
was
most
like,
part.
who? Yeah, like how have I never met any photographers that like that is what they do? Is
Yeah.
free time, I'm building stock imagery and selling it.
Yeah. You know what? Some of them are like, I'm just like, gosh, thank the art gods for you that you have made this exact image. And the thing is, stock image photographers that are like that have like these huge libraries and stuff. I want to know you. I want to understand you, because I want to know how you knew that one day I was going to need a picture of a man over 50 in a duck hat, like gesturing at a mountain. Like, how did you know that I needed that? Because it was there when I looked for it, you know? So it's just like very, and then it's like the descriptions are like, man, middle-aged, duck hat, happy, joy, mountain. Like, you know, like,
it's like they just take a bunch of random words, pull it out of a hat, and be like, "That's what we're shooting today."
That's
folks.
what we're shooting today. And you know what? People need it. People need it. I don't know how you figured it out, but I needed it.
All right. Well, we are about an hour and 10 minutes into this.
Are we really?
Yeah, it's 10:40.
Okay.
Pacific Standard Time. We're cooking along here. I mean, we're doing good. We're doing good here.
Yeah, I feel like I'm making progress.
Yeah, if you all are just joining us, we are here with Voodoo Val.
Oh, hi.
Yes, hello. We are doing this is a drawing painting session, going over some foundations, composition, some values, doing some high fantasy. Always exciting. If you're joining us on YouTube, welcome. And if you're on Behance, welcome. You can join our chat by going to b.net/Adobe Live. Any questions y'all have for Val, please ask. Anything at all. If you just want to tell us how your day is going, please. We love you guys here. We love having you on the chat. So yeah, let's see. We're wrapping up in about 40 minutes, right? So yeah, let's keep cooking. Oh, okay, real quick. We got a real quick question from Becca Smith.
Yeah, let's do it.
Val, do you have tips or resources for how you learn to draw faces so well?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There's some. It's funny. I didn't really start drawing people. I started drawing monsters. Like monsters were my thing. So I guess I was doing like wildly exaggerated versions of faces at first, but let me see if I can find this guy's name. I don't want to get his name wrong. Can I find? I feel like his name is Crinkle. on YouTube. Maybe I'm wrong. This guy has like this YouTube channel. It's like an extensive YouTube channel that's all about like drawing faces from different angles, painting different materials, so not everything looks like it's painted with the same material.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if I can find this one. Yeah, Keenan Lafferty. And he's got KNKL. So I actually have the link here, and I think that I can post links in the chat because I am also a mod. So this guy's got some great stuff, and there's actually right there on the popular videos, like right at the top, is back to basics drawing faces. There you go.
Awesome.
And it's just, I would say also practice, but I also have a very particular kind of face that I like to paint, and I think that that's kind of common. I've started to realize like part of my style means like I draw like these gaunt faces, like I have all of the, if you like look through my portfolio, a lot of my characters, I'm just like high cheekbones, y'all, high cheekbones, just like tiny jaw on the side, pointed chin. Like all of my characters are elves without being elves. And I should maybe mix that up a little bit because it's obvious to me. But I do a lot of that. So I've kind of found faces that I just really love painting. Then I do that a lot. Like I do it constantly. So putting the time into it, but which is funny.
There's a lot of good like structural tutorials. Obviously, I mean that's the first thing is really anatomy, and try to find something, a simple anatomy, because it can get really overwhelming really quickly. Studying the planes of the face is really important.
Yes.
They have sculptures out there. They have 3D models that you could buy or view online, but look for simplified, planal structures where you can really see the surfaces of the face. And then beyond that, with style and kind of where you want to take that, find an artist that you like, find other people you like, copy the work. Now I know most people are like, don't copy the plagiarism. When you're practicing, one of the things you do in traditional art is you have to do master copies. It's very important to do a master copy because you need to understand how that master made his work so that you can reverse engineer it.
I was just going to say reverse engineer. Yeah.
So if there's a style of art you like, either in manga, anime, or high fantasy or animation, study the artists that you like, see why their art works, and then try to do some fan art of theirs, try to do some copies, see if you can kind of replicate that style. But definitely, foundations. If you really want to get better, understand why things are the way they are. Really look, that's why people do still lifes and spheres and cones. It's just all of those things build up to learning how to put these all together into something special. So, if you don't know how to render, if you don't know how light works or bounce light or rim light or, core shadows. And so if you don't understand that, it's, Val couldn't be making this painting right now, right? It's like you need all of those things, all of those tools to get here. So definitely, Steve, you're right. Just a lot of practice, but I think making sure that you have the right reference materials is important as well. You don't want to be practicing, you don't want to be working on a foundation that's got a bunch of cracks in it, right? You want to make sure it's a nice strong foundation. So I think popular books, either on Amazon or there's 3D anatomy for artists. There's a lot of great resources out there. If you just Google it, you can find a ton. But maybe even ask one of your favorite artists the type of anatomy books that they looked at or reference. But I think work on those basics, and the rest will kind of follow.
Yeah, and I think you make a really great point, and it's similar to what I say to people when they ask. This is like the age-old question: is how do I find my style? How do I do these things? How do I develop a way to, like, as Becca is asking, like, how do you learn how to paint faces, or how do you do this? And then how do I make it my own? Because you're right. One of the things that I did constantly was I found artists that I loved, and I just tried to paint what they were painting, because I was just like, how did he do that? How did he, get this texture? How did he, how did they create like this effect with the color? Is that a blending mode? What is it? Just trying to figure it out. But then afterwards, you kind of figure out how to do it, and you apply it, in your own work. And how do you take those things that you've learned and then develop a style that is your own? And I say as often as I can, because I needed to hear this, is that I don't think that style is something that you like go out and shop for. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like the way people
definitely not.
yeah, people ask that question, or are looking for an answer to that, as if there's like a place where you can go and get it. And I know that it's because I remember thinking that, like, when is it gonna get here? When am I gonna have that look to my art where people look at it and they know that it's mine? I'm told I have achieved that already, but when I look at my own portfolio, first of all, it looks like 27 different people got together and did a sketch and put it all in the same place. It looks all different to me. And I don't see a style in my own work. So I would say most of you are going to arrive at having a style before you know it. You're going to be praying for a style and already have a style, probably, most likely. But I think that style at its core really is your interpretation of the fundamentals, right? Because you learn the rules so that you can take them and use them and bend them and break them the way that is comfortable for you. When you learn the basics and you understand, you don't have to be a master of everything in order to make cool art. You just kind of start to get a handle on it. You take those basics and fundamentals and you start to apply them in a way that is comfortable for you. You start to develop a technique for how you get from point A to point B. And before you know it, the way that you interpret the world through art becomes specific to you. And then I think eventually your style just kind of shows through. It starts to look like you, starts to look like your stuff. I
completely agree with that. I had a interesting contract job recently where it was developing styles for a game. And
Sick.
exploring those styles, right? And so that's especially specifically talking about your own style. And if you want to work in the entertainment industry or with concept art, character design, a lot of the times they don't want your style.
No.
They want you to match somebody else's style, or you have an art director that's leading that style, or a production designer. So if you have the foundations, if you understand how you're creating maybe the art that you like to create, well, when somebody asks you to create art that looks like somebody else's art, you can understand how to get there because your foundations are strong. So it's important as an illustrator, or specifically I think within the entertainment industry, is being flexible, adaptable, and really studying a lot of different styles, so that when that time comes where you need to kind of paint out of your comfort zone, you're ready for it. Yeah. It actually ends up being, for me, it's really fun, because I had the same story where I worked in the fine art world for a long time. So style is everything.
Yeah,
right? Your voice is why people are buying your art. And so I think I struggled with that for a long time, and then kind of realized in the end that I really like working out other people's styles. I really like kind of having that variety, and it kind of creates this constant challenge of like, how do I paint like that? It's like,
how do I do it?
Reverse engineering is like, how do I do this? Yeah. So
that's awesome.
There's a lot of different ways to approach it. And I think you're right. You're not going to just get a style. It's going to be something that you slowly build over time through exploration. And guess what? Your taste is going to change. And there's a lot of artists out there that their style changes over time.
Totally.
And you're going to get to a place where like, well, I'm here now. I used to be here when I created that style. Now I'm here and I can create an even more incredible way of painting, and that feels like my voice. So definitely it's something like, don't get stuck on it, because it's going to happen, and you're going to just naturally gravitate towards painting or drawing a certain way as you learn those skills.
And I think you know, kind of to the point, like what you say, as far as like artists evolve and change, we are, as much as I would like to be a magical mythical girl flying through the trees with magic and have a cool sword and all that kind of stuff, I'm a regular human being, mortal, totally mortal.
Damn,
You know,
mortal.
and I know, God, I did not sign up for mortal. No, but you know, I'm a human being, and bodies change. You know, people transform along with their thoughts and feelings and personalities. People change, and I feel like if you just focus on knowing what to paint, then as you move through your art journey and your life in general, they will, you know, that stuff will kind of persist. One of the things that I went and looked this up because I actually I injured my hand, and I like painted until my hand was like formed into a claw, because
yes.
I didn't do I didn't have a spotter, and I did not go to Art Gains gym healthy.
Yes.
You know, I just was painting and painting and painting, and I was like, what am I gonna do if this never gets fixed? What am I gonna do if I can't paint? What, you know, how is this gonna fare for me? And I remember, is anybody in the chat familiar with Frank Frazetta?
Pretty amazing guy.
Yeah. Pretty incredible. If you look him up, I'm sure everybody here has seen some of Frazetta's work, and I don't want to tell this story like I know every single detail, but from what I understood, he, as he got older, he painted differently. He had I want to like double check, because you know when you tell a story about somebody else and you're aware that you're on Adobe Live and you're like, what am I making this up? Pretty sure I'm not making this up. I'm gonna I think it was Frank Frazetta who got a shake in his hand and just changed his style. Like, he used to have like these really clean lines and stuff, and then you can see over time in his career, his hands were shaky, but his sketches were just looser and they looked awesome still. You know, just kind of like it, because he had such a good handle on like how to do art. Like, his hands were working differently, but he still had the know-how, and so he worked out a different way to do the art. I'm pretty sure it was Frazetta. Somebody in chat correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, yeah, we'll figure it out.
But
okay,
I thought that was great.
No, I mean, it's true. Adaptability and continuing the journey is the most important part. So let's see. We've got about a little over about 25 minutes left. So where are we at right now, and where are we trying to get to?
What I'm gonna do is, I think this is pretty solid, to be honest. Like, it's looking pretty good. I think it needs some other details and things, but what I'd like to do, and I didn't actually plan on doing this, I didn't know if we'd have the time for it. You can see I kind of like added a little off the shoulder top sort of there, which I think was kind of cool. Yeah. But I mean, she looks dope, so I think that maybe I can throw some color on it, honestly, and then throw some details. And I didn't know if I was going to be able to do color today.
That'll be great. And actually, it's cool to kind of see this process, because it is something that is used by many artists, of going in with Grayscale, doing a full value painting, and then adding basically is what a glaze really on top of it,
exactly,
color in. So this is it's a cool process to watch.
What I've done here is I grouped everything together, and I think I mentioned earlier that I would like create a smart object, and so I've created a smart object with all of those things. And remember, if you are working with smart objects, you can actually double tap this, and it'll open it up, and then I have all my layers here again if I would like to get back into my layers later.
Can you show me that again? I don't think.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think I know about this.
So smart objects, if you work non-destructively with smart objects, it's really great. And a lot of people use it for like graphic design and things like that. But I use it for painting all the time. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to clean this up into its own like object,
Uh-huh.
but I converted all of those, like all of my illustration layers and my background and everything. I grouped it into a group, and then I right clicked and said convert to smart object. So now it's a smart object. And if I want to re-edit all of those sketch layers, all those paint layers and everything, I just double click the image and it opened up a new layer or new file for me. And then I have all of those sketch layers. They're just right
That's
there.
awesome.
So
that is awesome.
That works for me. I'm probably going to end up adding more to this, and I can always go back if I want to. But with this, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint bucket in just some really loud red under here. And I am going to grab my lasso tool. I guess, you know what we could do? We could, this might not work. Might not. But I could try and do like an object select or select subject, and just see how it works. Sometimes I get lucky, but not terrible.
It's not too bad. You could clean that up.
Yeah. So I think I'll just clean that up. Come in with a lasso, and I'm holding shift just to add. And I'm not gonna like this bot. I am gonna make the background. The background's still gonna be black. Like it's all still gonna be black. What is going on with
you got to do the other, I think
it's can I, it was just like coming off the edge there. I wonder,
I think you'd have to alt delete. I think it's the selections on the inside.
Yeah. Oh, hold on.
So yeah, inverse.
There we go.
There you go.
Select inverse. Okay. Genius. My spotter for today, Chris.
Yes.
So I'm just going to add to that, and I probably will need to clean up the edges and make them, crispy and stuff. But this is good for now. I'm going to come in and clean the edge of here up, and I'm just erasing and removing things and making it all look cool. And then I am going to hit my mask button down here. Now I need to select inverse.
There you
go. Boom. So now it's on its own. It's on its own layer, and I'm not going to keep it red. I just needed to see, so I can kind of see what I'm working with here. And I will make myself a dark background again. But now this is all on its own layer, and it's masked, and I still have all of the layers and stuff in that smart object, so I can come back if I want to. And kind of what I would do is maybe come back in on this mask with my brush and start to clean up the edges of the mask itself, and just subtract and what have you from this, just because it will make it nice and crispy. And then I can add a clipping mask over the top of it and start painting within like this really nice cleaned up shape, which I think works for me. But I am going to paint bucket in some black here, or maybe like a dark gray. No, we want black. I like black. But because then I can come in like with my brush, I can make it big, and I could do something like this, like add some sketchy whatever back there. Or I can do my handy dandy noise brush, which is literally just comprised of things you can get in basic Photoshop. Soft round opacity brush with the dissolve turned on, and I make that really big, and then I can kind of just add some noise sort of gradient ish back here. I want that darker. Just put like some kind of texture back there, I could do that. But color. So there's still some sketchiness going on here, but I can do finishing touches over the top of that later. I am going to create a clipping mask above my illustration here. I might turn this on a lower opacity so we can still see that darkness back there. And I use blending modes, and I just throw tons of color over the top of what I'm working on. And then I start painting in color over top once I've, kind of chosen my colors. So
right.
One thing that I might do real quick is, let's see. I do have a Pinterest board of reference, which I didn't have up earlier, but I do have up now as far as colors go, and I would show it to you. I feel like I need to make a separate Pinterest thing, but my Pinterest reference,
Yeah.
You can't.
It's a
It's
little
just dangerous.
private.
No, well, it's dangerous territory just because I don't mind people seeing what I use as reference for a lot of what I do, but I have a lot of nude reference in there just because I got to know what's underneath things to paint it right, and I don't think that Adobe would be happy with me if I was like, here you go.
It's for art.
It's for art. But I just want to I think I'm going to use purples and reds and blues. I think that's.
But that is a good way to build a quick mood board or get reference. Yeah. Pinterest is a great resource for that.
For sure. And I have blending modes that I really like to use. Like I will use darken or multiply. It kind of depends on what kind of colors I'm going through. Color dodge can work sometime, but overlay and soft light are pretty great. Sometimes pin light works, which I might actually use pin light for some of the highlights because you can see it kind of like, throws it there. But what I will probably do is use darken, and I will I just inverted it. That actually is cool. Yes, hold on. Nice. I'm gonna put that same purple color on here and see if I can throw that purple underneath. And I'll throw that on darken, and then I'm going to open my hue and saturation with Control U. And I'm going to I want to see if I can kind of desaturate this a little bit until it's just adding a tiny bit of color to it, just a little bit. I think we're gonna do the same color on a different blending mode. Let's try this. I have my go-tos, like I said. Something that might work is just going through all of them, which is like just checking into soft light. Boom. There's like that darken that kind of has like that green going through, so she looks like she's a little fancy. And then I have base color here, so I kind of know, like, I want her to look a little sickly, like I want her to be creepy like that.
Yes.
But now I can't just leave it like that, like I mean you could, but I don't want to just leave it just like this because it's a little flat. So I am going to now take like a soft round brush, and I'm going to go through and hit it with color in like the usual spots where you would see certain kinds of color, where blood is close to the surface of the skin and all that kind of stuff. So find me like a good pinkish something, and I'll come in and like brush it under here. I want to make sure I'm not on dissolve anymore.
There we go.
Brush it underneath, and this is very like bright. Fear not, it's not like how it's going to stay. But I'm just like with a dramatic color hitting all these places where you would see like a blushing of blood beneath the skin and all those things, just so that I can start to make this look like a face. And then I'll throw it on a blending mode, and I'll use hue and saturation yet again to kind of find a color that works well with what I've got going on here. So should not take too long. Just kind of throw like some pink, maybe just like some darker color around the edge there, and probably some blush down here on the neck. How are we doing on time, by the way?
Let's see, it's 11:07, so about 13 minutes, I think, before we start wrapping up.
Okay. So hopefully I can kind of throw some good color in here. So darken doesn't look that bad, and it kind of looks neat. It's a little saturated, but that looks pretty cool. The multiply is scary, but I feel like it doesn't add enough warmth. Right. But I'm cycling through with my darker color is not bad. I'm cycling through with my arrows, my arrow keys. I just made sure to make sure that this is highlighted. Like I select a blending mode, and then as long as that's still highlighted blue, I can use my up and down arrow keys and like go through everything just to see if I find something that I like that isn't one that I would have maybe originally chosen just on principle. And I think I do actually like darken, and I will do the same thing where I'll control U, open the hue and saturation. I'll just see if there's a better hue that looks a little bit better with it. I think I do really like the crazy purple color, maybe a tiny bit more red in it. We could try desaturating it, which is not bad. And I'll leave it like that. I think that's starting to look interesting, starting to get a little more definition in the cheeks, all that. I'll grab my crazy brush again. I'm gonna grab this. I'm gonna grab something that's a little more like a tealish color, and I'm gonna put this only on top of where her skin is, because I'm gonna give her skin a separate sheen than the rest of the hair and all that stuff. And then, you know, once I have these things in place, then it's like, you know, I've got these basics for some cool color going on, and I can just start painting in color, and it doesn't, you know, it's almost like I started that way.
Right. You kind of got your, not landmarks necessarily, but you've got your base colors that you can work off of now. That might have been hard to, like you said, that's harder for you to find those immediately.
Yeah, because I feel like I'm worried about creating the painting and deciding what colors I'm going to use at the same time. And that bothers me. I'm not good at it.
Yeah, it takes a lot of practice, and that is something I work on all the time, and I try to paint with color as much as possible, just because the more I do it, I tend to, it just ends up being more colorful. Like, if that makes sense, like I be like, oh yeah, I could add a little green, a little blue, a little, you know, it's, I kind of tend to have more fun with it, but getting to that place can be hard sometimes. There's that like learning curve in the beginning of like, you're kind of just laying stuff down that like kind of looks not great for a while.
Yeah, and
that can be hard.
Urges me. Yeah, it like really makes me feel like I don't know what I'm doing, and like if it's like more private, then, you know, who cares, and I'll do like some experiments or whatever. But even sometimes when I'm just painting on my own, I just start to feel like I don't know what I'm doing, and then I start to feel like I don't know what I'm doing, and it's, you know, it's something that I feel like I need to practice, and just like get better, more comfortable with using color. I would like to be able to come to the point where I'm like, you know, just grab some paint and slap it down and I'm working in color immediately. I also kind of enjoy this part of the process though, where I don't know what's happening. Like, I didn't know it was going to turn out like this, and I think that's really cool right there.
Yeah, well, and this is part of the style, and that's kind of answers some of those questions. Is you find your workflow, you find things that you enjoy doing, because you want to enjoy making art. You know, that is why you're here in the first place. This is something that you enjoy doing. So that's, it's true. And it's kind of, you're right, it's kind of a fun way to have these happy accidents or choices that you wouldn't make deliberately, but now that you're cycling through layer styles and filters and you're to be like, okay,
she's like a rose gold silver now, and I didn't think that it was going to be that way, but I like it a lot. So now I've got these, and it's a little choppy, you know, and I think I'm kind of peeking. We probably have maybe 10 minutes thereabouts. We've got, you know, like this, you know, these colors down. I won't spend any more time messing with it. I'm rotating. By the way, I have my flip canvas horizontal routed to Control-Shift-A, by the way. So that's why I'm doing that super fast. But I'm going to grab...
you have to hotkey it, because otherwise it is a pain to open it up in the menus. So
100%.
Definitely put a hotkey on that so you guys can flip your canvas when you need it.
I am grabbing like still a charcoaly brush, but something that's like got more of a point to it, because I am going to start, like, I'm painting in color now and just kind of throwing things around, because I want to kind of differentiate those eyebrows. Yeah, I gotta see the eyebrows. Eyebrows are a must. I just want to put, you know, like some eyebrow motion here so that it looks, and I would spend some more time on it maybe later, and maybe I wouldn't use like something that was so harsh here, but let's grab like you know, like a bright color and start like adding some
Um,
highlights here.
yeah, and I think now that you're starting to see it get modeled out a little bit, what you were saying right from the beginning in the stream about, I think my teacher used to call it like chicken scratch, or you know, it's like hairy lines, scratchy
Mm-hmm.
lines. When you look at it, when you look at this piece and the things that are working, or it's you want to feel the energy, you want to feel the rhythm, and
Mm-hmm.
it's all about stroke. And so if you think about this, the way the lines move, you can follow that line, you can see, you know, and it's so important to have, because if there's a bunch of breaks in that rhythm,
Mm-hmm.
it actually breaks up the way that your eye is viewing the piece as well. You
Yeah.
want to flow from place to place, from focal point to secondary, third, you know. So you're starting to see it now with those texture strokes
Mm-hmm.
that are starting to pop out, how important that is to have that rhythm and flow.
Yeah, and they're kind of like now, especially that I've put in like more of the definition of the face, you can kind of see more where like my intentions here, like her cheek stayed there, you know, it kind of comes out there and it's kind of helped me build where everything flows. And
Mm-hmm.
it like looks like it makes more sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, last thing, because I think we are coming to a close pretty soon. We wanted to do like, I wanted face tattoos, y'all. What am I
Oh yeah,
thinking? Face tattoos.
tat her up.
What color are they gonna be though? I don't know. We're gonna figure it out. I think this is an empty layer. Um I'm just gonna paint a big stroke on her face. We're gonna figure it out. So we're just gonna go for it. I'm just gonna put this here
Yep, yep.
and I'm gonna put okay, so this one I wanted this to go out more because I feel like that looks more dynamic with it like coming from that direction, like boom. So then that means this is gonna have to come from over here a little bit more. I might alter it. Let's go ahead and get me a sharp
And
brush.
these are things like this are a good way also to kind of show that form, the wraparound, and
Yeah, it shows the
how
shape
that
of her
cheek. Yeah,
face.
yeah.
Also, this is one of those moments, folks. No fear. Like you can erase, you can control Z, you know, just like don't be afraid to just throw paint down on the canvas. Just throw it down.
And those big strokes, you're gonna have a lot more excitement and feeling in those strokes than you would if you were just to kind of noodle it on and make
Yeah,
it really tight.
yeah. Okay, so she's got these, and I think it needs more noodling, but we don't have time for that. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw that. Ooh, that's cool. It's so cool. All right, there we go. And then the last thing I want to do is I'm gonna come in here with like a dark color, and I'm gonna kind of define all of this a little more. We gotta get some eyelashes in here, but that'll be quick. And we also got to do my favorite thing, and that is like snagging some light and like making the, so like not only are the like the eyelids like dark and spooky and sickly, but they also are like oily.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if I have enough time to convey all that I want to convey in that aspect, but like being able to like add this like strange shine of sorts on there as like it's darker from the edges is kind of cool sometimes. So I'll just like kind of leave myself some notes where I know I want
a little bit creepier.
Yeah, a little bit creepier. I'm gonna grab like a hard brush. I don't know if that looks good with that brush. I don't know if that looks good with that color, to be perfectly honest with you. But I do know that I want eyelashes here. So we're just gonna throw some lines on it, because when you zoom out, nobody will see how wonky it is. And I can go back later.
There you go.
When you zoom out, nobody knows. It just looks like eyelashes from there. And I'll fix it later. You know? But I'm liking this a lot. I'm liking the colors. I'm liking.
Yeah, it's turning out beautiful. It's like I wasn't sure how you're gonna be adding these colors. It's surprising to me. It looks really great. How quickly you got to it.
This is my typical color process, and
Yeah.
like I would say 95% of the work in my portfolio started out black and white.
Hmm.
Like very like it's and I it's one of my favorite parts, and I feel like I say a lot,
Yeah.
like I'm gonna get to it. I just said it today, like I'm gonna work on get some practice in, and eventually I'll come to the point
You
where I
know,
don't need to do it,
it's
but I would still
you're
do
a
it because I like
sculptor.
it. Yeah.
You're not a painter. You're a sculptor, and
Yeah.
that's I think
Well, I
some
use ZBrush a
your
lot,
yeah.
so
So, but there's something too. I mean, I'm the same way. It's like color. I mean, I love color. Don't get me
mm-hmm.
wrong, but
Mm-hmm.
structure is what excites me
Yes.
when I draw. And so I know what you're saying. It's like the color needs to be there because that is the oomph. That is what makes it really special. But
Mm-hmm.
I am in the same boat. I mean, I love building structure, and I did a lot of sculpting when I was younger, and did a lot of sculpey maquettes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely in that boat. I love the building up process.
It's so much fun, and it's just like I don't know. I feel like the moments that I'm like the most proud of myself is if I do like peek at a painting with the sketch layer off and it still reads and it looks like one of those like grayscale busts, like the Roman busts. Like if I can get it to the point where I've done that, I'm like, look at me sculpting with light.
So cool. Yes, that's it. That's it. 'Cause that's really that's what makes it beautiful.
But yeah, guys, this was fun. It was really great to hang out with you too, Chris. This is
Yes,
like,
definitely.
I
Yeah,
feel
such
like
a
we
fun
don't do
one.
this enough, and I feel like we've like met in the middle, like here on Adobe Live enough times. But then I'm like, why don't we hang out and do art like not on Adobe Live? Like why is the only time I talk to Chris like here? That's lame.
No, totally. I know. I met Andrew the other day, and I was like, "Have we not like hung out
hung
yet?"
out, yeah.
No, I know. Yeah. So this is a great crew on Adobe Live. I mean, I love everybody that's on here. D Cruz says, "Looks really voodoo beautiful."
Ooh.
I'm gonna take that.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Alessandra says, looks amazing. Love the colors. Everybody's been raving about it through the process. Becca Smith loves it.
Yay.
Yeah, I mean, this was actually really fun because I know it was supposed to be 2 days. We were able to get in the 1 day. I think we killed it for only having the 1 day. I love the texture. I love that brush you made. Noise can be hard sometimes. Sometimes it's too crisp. Sometimes it can be too much. But beautiful painting.
Thank you.
Look how far you got.
I'm actually a little surprised with myself, but I feel like I kind of
practice. Look at this.
Through. Plus, I play like I wanted to be able to get stuff done in the stream because we only had the 1 day. So I kind of chose like my favorite thing ever to paint. So I was like pretty comfortable with it. I think, but yeah.
Yep. This is awesome. Well, the best part is that this is going to be archived. So if you're just tuning in and we're signing off, you can go back and check out the videos. But Val, it was awesome having you on. This was a pleasure. I'm glad it ended up happening because it almost didn't.
Yes.
All the little technical difficulties and everything, but look at what we ended up. Look where we ended up.
We got a whole painting. Painting.
Chat, as always, thank you for coming out. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for watching, participating. We always love to have everybody here. Just some quick notes wrapping up here. Stick around for our special pick of a past Illustrator daily creative challenge, followed by a 3D design stream with Kyle Jamison, where he'll show you how to add shading, lighting, cameras, and environments to finish off a 3D scene. Should be pretty awesome. And thanks again, everybody. Stick around as always. Adobe Live's always rolling. So we'll see you guys next time.
Alrighty, folks. Bye.
Bye, everyone.